cafe anyway. Why?
Mike's Daily Podcast.
Hello, welcome to FF episode 2040. 2040 is what we are at today with
Mike's Daily Podcast.
The show where I go to this place called Cafe Anyway and we hang out and we have a good time and I don't have to get up early. That's the point. But sometimes I have to and I get really surly and then I said things like, I like to sing this song and then it's going to be Mike Matthews on your earpiece, whatever you're listening with your ears.
Mike's Daily Podcast.
Your earpiece. Perhaps you have an hairpiece. That's fine. It's quite all right. You know, you can just
Mike's
be
Daily
what you want, but at the same time,
Podcast.
the stock market soared. What?
Yeah.
What? Update: Cincinnati stocks take off as market soars on encouraging vaccine news. Comments from Fed Chairman Jerome Powell also fueled the market's rise. Market soar. They're soaring. But there's still the highest infection rate in the Navajo Nation. Navajo Nation surpasses New York for the highest virus infection rate in the U.S. Bum, bum, bum. That's sad. Well, now I would like to talk about an interesting conversation I just heard. I was listening to a radio station that I help with, and they had a preacher on, and he was discussing how there's a date coming up very soon where they are going to be saying, you know what, we've been waiting long enough. Church does not work. Church does not work with Skype, with Zoom. We need to meet in fellowship, in congregation, and congregate. And we're going to do it. And despite the coronavirus and all that, we're going to do it. Now, I say, from what they've been saying, you can do the, social.
And here's today's podcast picture.
Social distancing, and this is pretty much what the pastor was saying. The social distancing part will be in effect. But, you've got people in supermarkets that are, within 6 feet, so they got to wear the masks. You've got, the various places open in California. Here we are in the thick of it, where it is very, very just, we're at not, I wouldn't say ground zero, but it's tough. And there's still people infected and, we got to be careful. Right, Basil? He stands with me, too. Well, he can't stand, but he says, yes, Mike. We have to be vigilant. So it was an interesting conversation because people were calling in. Basil tried to call in, but he couldn't get through. And they were saying, some were saying you can't, as a Christian, you cannot break the law. So, and then the pastor came back and said, well, it's not really a law. This is what the governor is saying. He's suggesting. So it was interesting. Very interesting back and forth topic that maybe you don't hear in your world that you generally congregate in, as it were. Perhaps you are a avid NPR fan and you want to listen to them. I don't know if that's even a topic they're discussing on that. The last show I listened to, let's see, they were discussing, I talked about that on the last podcast, about people trying to do at-home projects and failing miserably at it. One lady was complaining about her microwave making this beep, beep sound every 5 minutes, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. And some idiot friend of hers was suggesting, just not a very smart friend, was saying, why don't you just, turn off the breakers in your house? And that will restart the microwave. Hello, you could do the same thing, just unplugging the microwave. Why do you have to turn off the breakers? I don't get that. And the lady didn't know how to do that, and she was thinking about maybe hitting her breaker box. She was getting so frustrated she was going to shoot it, but then she got some repair person to come over and just basically say what we were all just thinking. just get a new microwave. And she did. And she put the old microwave on the curb, and somebody picked it up. Unfortunately, it was a neighbor, and so people on the street could still hear the beep, beep, wah, wah. And that's NPR telling you stories like that. So you're sitting in your driveway waiting to hear the end of the story, going, oh, I gotta wait. I can't go into the house until I hear the end of the story. Noodle Monster. Portlandia. I heard an interesting little bit of info about Kai Rizdal. That's a bit interesting. I'm going to just say this information came to me let's just say a bird told me this. A little bird flew by, because there's a lot of birds out. Springtime. They're enjoying the nice weather. We had a bunch of rain last night. Now the sun's out and the birds are loving it. The birds got a little bath. And one said that Kai Rizdal is kind of not nice towards women. Kind of treats them all rather shoddily. I don't know if that's true or not. I have never really liked him, and it was funny because I have a female friend who stands up for Kai Rizdal and says, oh no, he's the best. But something about his voice, his smugness, that's just me. And you get a ton of great information with Marketplace. It's true, but sort of behind the scenes. And that's what birds are talking about these days. Isn't that fascinating? That and how they like to congregate. Birds don't have to social distance themselves. So why should churches? Is that the question? Oh, here's a question. So someone I know, let's see, possibly someone I may or may not work with. Let's just say someone I may work under, who knows? But they said something to the effect of, hey, what do you guys think about voluntarily coming back to work? As we go outside a cafe anyway, we're bringing Mike's Daily Podcast somewhere in Podcastro Valley today. Everybody here is at least 8 feet apart. That's right. Not 6 feet. Not 3 + 3 = 6 daily. 336 daily is the number you can call me on if you'd like to talk to me. Call us here at Cafe Anyway. 3 + 3 = 6. As in Mike Matthews. Daily as in what this podcast has been now for a couple of days. So he said, what do you think? What do you guys think? I was talking to someone in Sacramento. What do you think? Now, here's the thing. Sacramento is a little bit more, let's just say, from what I have heard, it is not like here. Here we feel like we're at the epicenter. Actually, wasn't one of the first coronavirus cases in America? Oh, actually, now that I think about it, wasn't it UC Davis? I forget now, but that's a little bit closer to Sacramento, so I stand corrected. And anywho, someone in Sacramento who works with this guy said, why don't you suggest voluntarily showing up for work and getting back to normal? To which the backlash was palpable. People going, have you heard the guidelines that Alameda County, the company that I work for, is within Alameda County, and, there's a lot we would have to follow in order to be back to normal again. So just keep in mind, like the break room could only have like 2 people at a time. We can't start letting people come back in. Just all these things. And Fremont particularly is very strict. As Elon Musk just said, let's get this going again. So he's dealing with that. The backlash he's dealing with, I haven't really explored, but I'm sure there's stories about that. So I helped a dog today. I'm just going to zip through some topics here. I helped a dog today named Oreo. Oh, an ice cold milk and an Oreo cookie. I love doing this podcast for you later in the day, which is what I'm doing now. Instead of being 7 in the morning, it's 7 in the evening. And I can access things in my brain much better than when I have to be at the crack of dawn doing this podcast. Just letting you know. I am enjoying this much better than when I wake up, roll out of bed, and then try and do the podcast. And I'm like, what's that song, the Oreo song? Never mind the fact I've heard it a million times, but ice cold milk and Oreo cookie. So I meet a dog named Oreo. I know his name is Oreo because I look at his collar and it says Oreo. Thankfully, there was a phone number because this dog was on the loose and no humans around. And he was near a very busy street. And I was very worried about this dog, a black pit bull, cute dog, big smile. And I am not walking my dog anymore because he can't walk. So I took the dog, I stole him, I now have him. No, kidding. I've called the number on the tag. They picked up immediately, said, "Oh, do you know where our dog is?" I go, "Yes, I have him here. I want $1 million. No, I said, "I will bring him to you. Where are you at?" They told me where they were. And I walked with this dog, moving super fast. I didn't have a leash, so I had to reach down and kind of hunch over and hold his collar as I'm walking. Because this dog would just erratically run into the street. I'm like, no, wait. Turns out this dog was 1 year old, was just adopted, had just come from the shelter. Why the owners decided to let the dog off the leash with absolutely no, here's the rule. Here's the rule if you didn't know. If you adopt a dog, you do not let them off the leash at all. I would say at least 6 months. I waited a year. You've got it. This dog hasn't bonded with you yet. You have to give it some time. So these people, for some reason, let the dog off the leash. I don't know what they were thinking. Maybe the dog just escaped. That could have been. But at any rate, I got the dog back to the people, and they're happy, and the dog's happy. Everyone's happy. I saved a dog's life. I was happy about it, too. So all the best to Oreo. He may become a service dog. If they can get him from not running away, that's kind of important in the world of being a service dog. Another thing, so we're being so careful with the coronavirus. We should also be mindful to be careful, to be mindful and be careful and mindful simultaneously. That the sun is a slow destroyer. It's a wonderful thing, feels great on your skin, but be mindful and careful that sun will damage your skin. And I'm talking to so many older people that are going through issues that have to do with excessive sun exposure. And believe me, I'm probably going to have to deal with it at some point. But do you know that this guy here puts sunscreen on all the time? I remember when I lived in Alabama, I was putting on sunscreen every day. And I remember one Alabaman said to me, "You smell like California." And I go, "I'm actually from California." But yes, it's true, I do, because I've always got sunscreen on and I smell like a Californian. But you need to wear it. Get the 30 SPF. Be careful of your skin. Especially now as we're getting more and more into being outside more and enjoying the sun. Wanted to zip through this topic real quick. I mentioned Rush, the last show, the band Rush, and their 80s music, which I'm a huge fan of Rush 80s music, even though it was really synthesizer-y and poppy. But you've got to watch a music video with Rush from the 80s, and you've got to check out the mullet that the lead singer Geddy Lee has. His mullet is the most amazing mullet I have ever seen. I wish I could grow hair just so I could get this dang mullet. Or Neil Peart, the late great Neil Peart. His hair, he's got this rat tail, this braided rat tail shooting out the back of his he's got short hair and this little rat tail shooting out the back of his head. That's a long rat tail. That's bizarre. That's crazy. And then Alex Lifeson, the guitarist, looks like he's wearing a Don Johnson jacket. All of that is worth the price of admission. It's on YouTube. Check it out now. Also check out as many television comedies. I don't know who was the first to do it. It was probably Buffy the Vampire Slayer did the musical episode. Everybody seemed to be doing what I would like to point out 3 sitcoms that did musicals. musical episodes. Community, which did a bunch of musicals. One with puppets. That was one I watched last night. Had Jason Alexander do a cameo. Also, Sarah Bareilles. See, I love being able to access this stuff in my brain. If this was 5 in the morning, I would not be able to do this. Okay. Then there was Scrubs did a musical. And Psych did a musical that had Ali Sheedy in it. Check those out. The Psych one is interesting because the guy that created the show, is it Steve Franks? He created the show. He came up with the theme song for the show. And this musical episode, which is a 2-parter, features Barry Bostwick, who I saw perform on stage in Pirates of Penzance. Pam Dauber was supposed to be his female interest in Pirates of Penzance, but she, for some reason, got sick or was doing more. She was doing Mork and Mindy at the time, and so she was not on stage. Andy Gibb. No, Andy Gibb was the love interest. Andy Gibb. I saw Andy Gibb on stage, the late, great Andy Gibb. So that was with my grandma back in like 78, somewhere in the late 70s, early 80s. And there was Barry Bostwick on stage, and he is in the musical episode of Psych. Lyrics written by Steve Franks, directed by Stephen Franks, and the show created by him. Okay, so check those out. They're so creative and fun, and some of the songs are pretty darn catchy. Better than Cats. Yeah, I said it. Or the movie version of Cats, anyway, with the Taylor Swift. Okay. You can tell me what you think. 336MM Daily. Have I touched a nerve? 3 + 3 = 6. MM is in Mike Matthews Daily, as in what this podcast has been for a couple of days. And finally, what do you think about on the rides they have now? Disney has done this thing where a lot of their rides that feature cartoon characters that they make 3-dimensional. So you got this animatronic hands and arms, but the face is still animated. They somehow project onto the face. They do it digitally. The face that you remember from the cartoon. They used to try and make the face 3-dimensional, which looks odd if you ever see The Simpsons when they try and make The Simpsons 3-dimensional. It's like they don't quite work. It works better in a 2-dimensional world. So, what do you think about that? Not that I've been to an amusement park in a long time, but I have watched a lot of the rides. That's what I love about YouTube, is they have the rides of a lot of the amusement parks, what they have. So you don't actually have to pay the money to go to the amusement park and wait in the crazy long lines. Well, aren't most amusement parks closed right now anyway? So I think they might be starting to reopen. I think I just heard that. But it is going back to what this pastor said. He said we're living in a synthetic world, and he didn't like it. He didn't like the whole the way they were doing church and services and living in that synthetic way, and they want to get back to the real thing. Of course, there's the fear of the coronavirus and all that, but some of the stuff I covered today may mean we're on a definite better path than what we had been in. Oh, speaking of better paths, I'm walking outside a Cafe Anyway located somewhere in Podcaster Valley, and I've now walked up to these wonderful characters here. Hello, Michael Myers, it's Madame Rootabega, and I am enjoying today's show. Oh, thank you, madam. Are you gonna go to church sometime soon? Yes. Are you gonna go on a ride soon? Yes. Are you gonna write a musical comedy? No. Oh, I'm sure that would be good. Am I going to get a mic stand that doesn't wobble? No. Look who else is here. Hello there, Mike. This is Valentino, the parking attendant. And this is Bison Bentley. Do you know that? Mike, we wish that we had mullets like the guys in Rush Day. Yeah, Rush. Do you know that? Stop hitting my mic stand. Okay, next show, and please use sunscreen. And please keep an eye on your dogs. Don't let them run off. And if you do find a dog, be nice and look at always put a dog collar on your dog with a phone number. It's very helpful. Next show, it'll be the wonderful Chely Shoehart, Floyd the Floorman, and John Deere, the engineer. Thanks for listening.
Mike's Daily Podcast is written and produced and performed by Mike Matthews. His podcast is super easy to find. Download or listen to his show and read his blog at mikesdailypodcast.com. Email Mike now at mikesdailypodcast@gmail.com. See you tomorrow. Bye.
Oh, and the podcast picture today is of this picture I took when I was walking with my lovely lady friend on Saturday? Yes, it was Saturday. And speaking of which, this was over at Lake Chabot, and people weren't exactly social distancing that much, but we had our masks, or I did anyway, and we all have our masks, don't we, in life? We all put on a face that's not exactly ours, is I think what I'm trying to say. And anywho, this was a picture from just above Lake Chabot, looking out towards Gilroy and that part of the Bay Area. You can see that picture now at mikesdailypodcast.com.